Welcome, everyone. My name is Leah Madry, and I am joining you this evening from the Dairy Barn Arts Center in Athens, Ohio. The Dairy Barn is a nonprofit arts center with about 12 exhibitions every year that are featured, as well as a full 4 quarters of classes and workshops. This evening, I would like to introduce you to Ohio Poet Laureate Carrie Gunter Seymour, who is the author of 3 collections of poetry and is the winner of a POTY Award, Story Trade Award, Legacy Award, and Best Book Award. She is a Pillars of Prosperity Fellow for the Foundation for Appalachian Ohio, the Executive Director of the Women of Appalachia Project, and is the editor of its anthology series, Women Speak. Her work has been featured in the American Book Review, World Literature Today, the New York Times, and Poem a Day. And of course, you can find her at www.carriegunterseymourpoet.com. Welcome, Carrie.
Hey, Leah. Thank you so much. Hey, I want to remind everyone that tonight's event will be available for replay on the Dairy Barns YouTube page, and I'll also paste it onto my Facebook page and in my Twitter account. It'll also be on my personal website, which Leah just told you about, carriegunterseymourpoet.com. So if you want to get a cup of coffee on Saturday or Sunday morning and rewatch, or you'd like to forward it maybe to a friend to watch, we would really appreciate that. I do want to take a minute to thank all the fine folks at the Dairy Barn Arts Center for hosting, and to the Ohio Arts Council for sponsoring the 2024 season of Spoken and Heard events. So tonight I have the wonderful pleasure of featuring 2 exceptional award-winning poets, Mary B. Moore and Joy Priest. For those here with us tonight, we will take a question or 2 after the readings, so jot down your thoughts and be prepared to post them in the chat after the readings. So let us begin. Mary B. Moore's poetry books include Amanda Chimera, winner of the Arthur Smith Prize at Madville Publishing, Dear If from Orison Books, Flicker, winner of the Dogfish Head Award and the Book of Snow. Her prize-winning chapbooks include Amanda and the Man's Soul and Eating the Light. Her poems have appeared in Birmingham Poetry Review, Poetry, Nimrod, Prairie Schooner, Nell, Terrain, Calyx, Still the Journal, Cortland Review, and so many more. She's won Nell's Three Sisters Prize, Birmingham Poetry Review's Collins Award, and second place in Nimrod's Pablo Neruda Prize. Phew. It's hard to believe, but Mary and I have not met in person, though we do get together with many of the same people. But I've had the pleasure of getting to know her through our social media interactions, and I'm just so pleased to have her here tonight. Just as a little mention for her books, Amanda Chimera can be found at Madville Publishing and Dear If at Orison Books. So please think about owning a copy of our guest books tonight. I'm excited to welcome Mary to Spoken and Heard. Mary, are you having some trouble getting on?
No, I didn't realize I had to do it myself. Here I am. Carrie, thank you. That was a wonderful introduction. I am so looking forward to this reading. I'm going to start reading some poems from Dear If, which came out 2 years ago from Orison Books. It's a book about a God that I sort of don't believe in and sort of do believe in. It's full of reverence and perhaps a lot of irreverence too. I grew up Catholic. That becomes apparent very early. And I do resort a lot to the Catholic imagery and belief system in my contemplation of Dear If. I'd like to start with a poem called Saturday in the Between. Not quite believing and almost believing are very much in the between. Saturday in the between. Swift swoop, soar, titter past my porch. It's not quite house or world, in or out, like the Bardo, where they say we dream between bodies. The swifts, pale-breasted, purple-backed, could be anything. Spirits, thought birds of do or don't or ought. Little hungers loosed and speed-fed on clouds of gnats. You can't tell if you're coming or gone, Mom used to say, perched on a new incarnation's ledge. How close the swifts just came. I'm so near their haunting ground. Air's my ground too. The house bricks, rose and maroon smearing into rain. The oaks grumble against the roof. The Tibetans say everything you see is you in the Bardo. I'm flit and sore, purple-backed, the oak like chimney smoke braided, gray, white, raptured or just burnt up. Whatever, Mom would say. Twilighting, it seemed every evening, her private between. When she flickered on, off, here, there, now, then. A breath or sigh lisps by my spine's ridge now, or the lashes of an eye whose seeing eye can't see, wisps or whips. So there's that ambiguity. The Tibetan is a place that's not a place where souls wait between incarnations, the Bardo, I mean. Blackbirds for Raoul Mayagortia, my first rush. You hummed the San Pedro blues in Sister Leona's class, your basso profundo and undertow. The beat was D-fib, erratic as the solos you scribbled in trig on 5-bar graph paper. Before she caught and hauled you to the principal, who pulled off his belt and let you have it like Paul, his favorite apostle, would if he could. But you came back humming the Zapata blues, strummed the graph paper's little cages till a score showed up, one-winged blackbirds. Sorry if you hear page rustling. So this iffy God is kind of everywhere or nowhere. Dear God of lilacs, you do the lilacs this morning along Four-Pole Creek, where you also glitter the tadpoles and the doomed, discarded goldfish who glint back copper and peony pink, a penny for their lives, ours. An orange cat sniffs the lilacs, tail up, mouth slightly open, sign of arousal. The 100 flowerets of the lilac, 5-petaled and blue-buttoned, form one spur, a brood, a democracy, a many that's one, both stamened and ovumed, delicious flagrance. No wonder Whitman loved lilacs, the pale violet mimicking dawns, bruise and blur, hurting the horizon into becoming itself again. Or is that also you, dear God? That space where days and nights rub shoulders as they pass, lilacs, fragrance. The goldfish flick and glint, vanish. Metals urge to be flesh assuaged for now, and the cat wanders off, tail a plume, trailing odors and lures. Something other than me that's also me. Is it you? Leans in me toward the lilacs. Dear unknowing, dear brood and bruise. A poem that also reveals the Catholic background of my not knowing is called And Then She Was Rain. It's about probably my childhood version of Mary of Nazareth, and it has 5 parts. I'm going to read the last part, which is about the Ascension of Mary. For those of you who aren't Catholic, Catholics believe that Mary was so pure that she is the only human being who was allowed to ascend to heaven with her body rather than die and ascend only as soul. The poem refers to a painting by Titian, which is described in the previous part of the poem, in which the apostles are pictured all holding their hands up as Mary ascends above them. Another ascension. 1. She rises from the abandoned lot where ragweed, wild violet, and condoms like used daylilies grow, where bachelors have lost their blue buttons and rain broods on the grass like beads the Trappist monks made from old glass. Thomas Merton lived in their monastery Gethsemane, not 90 miles from here. His poems tended toward Zen. You can burn the flute, but not the notes, says Large Mind, misquoting Galway Canal. Don't count your beads before they're hatched, says Small Mind, echoing my mother. The 5 crows strung on the phone wire quote themselves and look like whole notes. Everything owes the crows but Mary. Even the skeleton flowers, the Appalachian wild flower, each petal now a see-through flat cup. Rain turns them to rain. She bends and tongues one. Then she is rain. 2. The woods below know her patter. The leaves vibrato repeats her. Come back, said Titian's apostle, his whole body beseeching, blood's call to blood. But she is falling and flying the rain. A zillion curved surfaces the open touches all over. She taps her litany of ellipses on our roofs for answer. B, B, B. Makes tin a timpani, slates gray a drum. She tongues and slurs the wild violets, the naked ladies' down-tipped trombones. The summer convections lift her too, a mist, a brood of beads, a confusion of clarities. Sometimes before her reign, the ghost hawk furrows her blue and keens its greeting, warns or grieves the high blue note like light hail. It stings and singes the longing cups of our ears. Just as in the Dear God of Lilacs, where something is in you that is not you. And there, the implication is maybe it's a soul. It's some kind of sacred longing. In Amanda Chimera, the thing that's inside you is a vanished twin. Amanda in utero was one of a pair of twins. Duh, that's redundant, but you know what I mean. And one of the twins died. Her DNA was absorbed by Amanda's cells. Amanda has named her vanished twin Gloria. The Gone Twin, an origin myth. So now I'm reading from Amanda Chimera. The mother played violin to soothe the twin swimming the amnios. Amanda would play second fiddle to no one. She absorbed her twin, spine still translucent, arms still fins. Or did Gloria sicken, thin, and dissolve into Amanda's cells, freckle her chin, spot the right lung? Amanda doesn't believe in the church God, but imagine that Gloria is hidden inside her like a soul. She'd sing Gloria in excelsis Deo. They duet, one low, one high, a contralto of sorts. Gloria likes to jingle fast, then slow in Amanda's head as they go home from Mom's salon bellissimo. Her cloth bag belling, bracelets, earrings, pins. Amanda wants to sing along, a high, quick flickering, a vibrato. Gloria pings like starlings and chatters like monkey mind. Amanda this, Amanda that. How'd you get skin, tongue, the body's bling? Gloria's no saint. Amanda is her haunt. And that haunt is an uneasy residence, as the poem The Birds of Cutting show. As you'll see, the picture of Amanda Chimera includes a red and a blue face. Red and blue are themes throughout the poem, the book, and this is the early poem that enunciates that. The Birds of Cutting. I'm tired today and blue to boot. Nothing buoys me. Yes is my nose. Even the cardinal on the fence, a dusky girl, isn't all red like cardinal boys. And the blue jays are goading the white cat. Fur spiked and matted, he won't be hurried or harried. Tail down, he slinks finally under the porch. The jays take off. Like me, sometimes they're louts. All the birds I notice are red and blue, like blood, blue in, red out. The blue that shadows my eyes agrees with the blue veining my wrists. In is better than out. But red bolds its course, is high res, heady and heedless. And the little mouths I cut on my arm, bleeding and being bled, hurt me into feeling a festival of hurt. Look at my red letters. Read me. Tell me I am. The last poem is Gloria as the Jilted Girl. Grays and grim yellows suit her. She's a mood, like light on a leaf-muddled pond. The umber of cattails swaying against each other shadows her hair. Two large braids turned like seashells at each ear. Juniper berries green her eyes, their transparency, gins. No wonder she wanders the ledges of ponds and windows, halts near thresholds and door sills, at ease in liminal places, like the angels in Renaissance paintings, aloft in corners, mostly eyes and wings. She can wash you in feeling, which is all she is now, having disavowed breath. She hovers at your edges, weightless as vows. Thank you for hearing a small portion of 2 books.
Oh my goodness, Mary, thank you so much. And I'm going to go ahead and ask you to turn off your video.
I
And
will.
okay, thank you so much. That was quite a beautiful reading, Mary, and your language is so rich, and I'm so excited for everyone to be able to hear you read your work. As usual, when we ourselves read it, it of course pops off the page and comes alive, but to hear your voice and your inflection is quite wonderful. So thank you so much for sharing with us this evening, both of your beautiful books. So we will move forward. Joy Priest is the author of Horsepower from Pitt Poetry Series, winner of the Donald Hall, winner of the Donald Hall Poetry Prize. She is the editor of Once a City Said, a Louisville Poets Anthology from Saraband. She is the recipient of a National Endowment for the Arts Fellowship, a Fine Arts Works Center Fellowship, the Stanley Kuntz Memorial Prize from the American Poetry Review, and most recently her work has been longlisted for the 2024 Granum Prize. Her poems have appeared or are forthcoming in The Nation, Kenyon Review, and the Los Angeles Review of Books, among oh so many others. She is an assistant professor for African American diasporic poetry at the University of Pittsburgh and the Center of Community Programs and Practice at its Center for African American Poetry and Poetics. Joy and I first met at the Heinemann Settlement School, and this has been many years ago. And I contacted her recently, and she was kind enough to provide a blurb for my newest collection, which is Dirt Songs. I always have to give a little shout out to my press, Eastover Press, and I'm so grateful that she was willing to take the time to do that. You can find Horsepower at the University of Pittsburgh Press website, and Once a City Said, a Louisville Poets Anthology is at Saraband Books, again, sarabandbooks.org. So I am thrilled to welcome Joy Priest to Spoken and Heard.
Thank you so much, Carrie. I'm glad you invoked Hyman. I just actually went back this past summer, and that's like my spiritual literary home for sure. I like to start with an origin poem. I usually start with the title poem for Horsepower, but I'm gonna start with a different poem. I'm gonna start with Derby. I grew up like the early part of my life outside of Churchill Downs, where they run the Kentucky Derby every year. So this poem is just sort of about the peripheral cultures that you really don't get to see on the news around the big event, Derby. First Saturday in May, my mother wrestles my hair into 2 ponytails. The only day of the year she bothers. The upsweep of skin pulls my face into a grin. Special occasion barrettes molded into the white plastic body of a horse gallop behind me at the tip of my braids as I race the stretch of our narrow alley street, shouting into the mirrored windows through cartoon-sized teeth, "Park here, $10." 8 years old and I am a professional, up early to greet the regulars. Mr. Whitlock, black Lincoln Town Car. Mr. Crouch, red topless Corvette. I usher the expensive machines into the VIP spaces of our carport, pander through the heavy hands dropped on my freshly parted scalp. All day long, up and down Cliff Avenue, I am my mother's gimmick. Reeling in the big betters, picking the sure horse, giving directions to the entrance in my tiny voice, selling plots of our yard and lemonade to orange-tinted men sweating through linen, their nameless women under gaudy hats. We memorize their faces from scratchy lawn chairs beneath a mellow blimp, humming through the sky. Then the streets empty. The announcer's voice echoes, blankets our roofs, a distant Oz. Grills warming, beers hissing, crowd buzzing like a radio between stations. We wait for the races to let out, for our customers to stumble back from that fortress we've never been inside. We argue garage to garage, place the real bet. Which of us will be the first to go? Okay, now I'm gonna read a poem from this new project I'm working on. And I actually wrote this poem after a film that you can't watch, so I don't want to tell you what it is. But yeah, it's like you can't access it now. But it's a film about like a working class family in the South. And the first year I left Kentucky, I was in New York. I was in Newark, New Jersey, but I usually just say New York. But anyways, I was there for a fellowship, and it was my first year out of Kentucky. I had just been waiting tables a few months before, and when I saw this movie, and it was like I was watching my story, and yeah, I just like used it to sort of inspire this poem. The night never ended when one of us died. The night never ended when one of us died. The dice and smoke kept rolling. The town we lived in already felt like the end. When the phone rung, I was always the one to answer, someone asking for directions, but they couldn't hear my small voice over everyone sighing resolutely together about where we'd ended up. From the porch, all you could smell was the waste plant. But when they sent the boy cousin to the corner store for more beer, I ran to it, the way we ran to base, followed him there with my eyes, which saw what the grown folks didn't want us to see, which kept inside the self what they could not. My auntie had on gold boots, lumens. She stood beneath the wind chime, inside a lightless vacuum connecting Newports like constellations, the burning fresh to the burning out, the boots being the only reason I noticed her there. When she sat down at the card table, her belly was still a perfect globe, just like the poof on her head, the puff exiting her lips like a life expiring. When Uncle's backhand met her cheek for asking, not thinking where he was headed on his way out the door, she fell from grace like that angel who knew too much, leaving one boot upright on the linoleum, ownerless but luminous nonetheless. Hadn't she learned by her age, you only escape into yet another paradise to fall from? The party continued under the lights that washed the poor country of my parents' kitchen red. So when the blood ran down Auntie's legs, we all thought it was her water had broken. It is best not to confide in anyone your own victimhood. When a family's pain falls into a girl, only she can bring it out of her body alone, by death or instrument, embryonic little lyrics squeezed out onto the screen or canvas or page. Right. All right, so this is a reading for Ohio. So my dad's from Cleveland, and I got to read a poem that mentions Ohio. So the next two poems I'm going to read are like really rough poems. Like I'm still working on them, but I feel safe to read it here. You know, before I like had a book and anybody knew my name, like I went to readings and read the work in progress, and that was like part of the process. Like when I read it out loud in front of people, I realized what it needed. So yeah, I want to get back to that. So this very rough poem is called Somewhere on an Interstate in Cleveland, 2003. Stairway to Heaven is playing and everybody talking loud. Somebody in the back seat yells out, he's headed to the end zone with an entourage, so it must be winter. This memory has black fog around its borders, like moody gardens I visit inside myself. Outside my body, the air is blue and empty. I am a drunk teenager behind the wheel, no license. The interstate's white lines proliferate, dance across the windshield like lyrics to a sing-along. My father, shotgun, furiously playing air drums. Moments before, he'd pulled the car to the median because he'd seen his high school classmate David Greer's imaginary horse Starburst, who wore blue jean bell bottoms and was orange and actually more like a unicorn, galloping next to us. My father and everyone else in the car, an uncle. Maybe the one aunt left, sitting on somebody's lap. I'm still following my daddy everywhere at this point, doing what the men do, every last one of whom has to pee and is yelling over the music. One uncle's growling vocal cords ruined with pipe smoke, and the twins' cool suggestions, and the moon glowing like an Arctic scorpion in black light, and the white lines scrolling up the screens of my eyes like credits at the end. I'm alone with my fear, which looks out from the interior gardens like a panther. I know by now my father gets upset when I panic. The biggest part of me still believes the Father knows everything, will never put me in danger. Just take off when you're ready, but don't bullshit, he tells me as we idle on the side of that empty highway. Inside the body, no sound. Outside, Jimmy Page's guitar kicks into oblivion at the 6-minute mark, and I hit the gas, Lady Winter blowing white clouds behind us, snow ash carried off Lake Erie, reaches the edges of the soundless forest in my subcortex. I cross the line of my own instinct for danger. I learn I like it. My luck starts to spill thinly through the sand glass. Right. And this other one is also like what I'm working on still. It's called Grease. The Los Angeles Review of Books was doing a series with elements. And so they asked for like a poem that either had to do with like wind, fire, water. And I wrote this for the fire and it didn't really work out. But then I thought, I want to do my own thing where I like just have these poems that are titled after these like sort of, you know, substances, you know, just the bottom of our shoe type stuff, and like really exalt them too. Like, you know, make them worthy of a poem. So this is called Grease. And it's like, I'm trying to write about this time when I was a really young teenager working at Sonic Drive-In, and somebody made me a manager. And I had to open the store on Saturday mornings so early, it was like still dark outside. I don't know. But anyways, who gave me that job? It's crazy. Okay, Grease. That glitchy thing your mind does when it realizes you are the only one who can put out the fire. It makes you want to abandon it all, walk from the store and light your Camel Blue, flick it back like Angela Bassett in that spirit of total destruction. 16 and running the neighborhood drive-in, skating the asphalt with a 6 a.m. smile. Still dark, the cars already aligned, choking the parking lot, stars audibly twinkling, a stentorian blue jay bitching, when a plangent flame erupts from the empty fryers in front of you, glowing in the black of your eyes. What catastrophic convergence put you here in this life, this neighborhood, this history, this family, this hypertension, this mind, this grief? I didn't call 911. I called my father, who shares with me a calmness in crisis, but a flame in the blood. Salt, he said, not water. All right. Okay. I'm gonna go to, yeah, I'm trying to write a lot about alcoholism, like, my own, I'm sober, but also like alcoholism as like a family disease. Anyways, I wrote this poem that's like, I don't know, like being drunk, arguing with John Keats, because I read that John Keats was like, I really got into John Keats when I read this book by Anahid Naresian. It's a literary criticism book, but it's so gorgeous. It's like a love, it's like a book about love, and like it's like reviewing his odes. But anyways, I learned he was like, I don't know, like a really cool dude. Like he went to sit with his brother when he had tuberculosis, knowing it would be like fatal to him, and he liked to fight, and he was like a socialist. So anyways, I just wrote a poem like imagining like if Keats was in the car with me and we were drunk together. So Keats rides shotgun. Oh, great, in shambles in the party field, my skylark motor quakes droplets of dew. Done, this cush, hover mist, we're so through. Cantankerous fights, makeups, our dented fields, enthrall sweetest windflower, hung over trill. Say, you old muck-mouth bopper, thirsty fool, retreat, crusting my velvet seats with drool. First to dip from the scene, titanium wills. Land I leave defeated with vacancy. I list to the furthest road. Ooh, I fishtail the bend. Oh, hell, wild like the anemone. My bruise from last night's fisticuff now swells. Lost memories mad me, submerged under drink. Those teetered hours, the endless accel. I forgot that I wrote it after Keats too. Like I was trying to write an iambic lines, and the rhyme scheme that I like borrowed from him too. So, and this is called Metaphor as Carpenter Bee. And yeah, I was just walking in my new neighborhood here in Pittsburgh, and I found a reading garden, and there's these huge carpenter bees that were over there, and that's special to me because I grew up with a rotting carport in the backyard, and there was like a ton of carpenter bees, and I'm like irrationally fearful of bees, but it registered like carpenter bee. I don't even know if this is true, but someone told me carpenter bees won't sting you. So I just know if they're like huge bees, I tend not to be as scared as if they're like tiny bees. Anyways, metaphor of carpenter bee. Just now, the carpenter bees are sonicating pollen from the limelight hydrangea in the reading garden. The thoracic ultrasonic vibration fragmenting the cells of the sparkling seed. Music as instrument of work. Acoustic resonators buzzing grains from the flower's anthers. One fat girl is stumbling along the ground because she is old, I assume, near the end of her short life, until a tourist, a chemist from Oklahoma who dabbles in beekeeping, steps over to tell me she isn't dying. She's loaded too much pollen into her corbiculae, tiny cups on her hind legs, now too heavy to fly. Sweet dust, the reason for working, work and the work of drinking. It's the reason for living until it becomes the reason you aren't. Okay, I have like one more poem. I don't know if that was 20 minutes, but that means more time for y'all to like ask questions if you want. So this is called Looking for the Beautiful Things, and if I can find it. And I wrote this when I was like living in Texas, and everyone I used to read it at this bar that I went to, and people would like every Friday, they'd be like, read Big Jeff, read Big Jeff. And I'm like, the poem is not called Big Jeff. The poem is called Looking for the Beautiful Things, but you'll see why they said that in a second. And I forgot to say, but a few of the poems I read, the Keats poem, this poem, and there's something else I was thinking of, like while Mary was reading, I like left a few slots open to pick poems that were in conversation with some of hers. And I just heard the birds and the flowers that were just sort of cross-pollinating her poems. And so I was thinking of the birds in this poem and the flowers in the Keats poem. Looking for the beautiful things. I live in Texas now, and in the next lane over on I-10, Big Jeff is soaring at twin speed toward the dust-pending horizon. And something base and graceful has taken us over. Like if I took my hands off the wheel, we would lift into the air and become part of the indistinguishable wave of laughing gulls above. Big Jeff, says his license plate, which I first checked when I let him pass 10 miles back because his lights behind me were the second coming, or the first coming in his case, if we're making the usual jokes about men with big trucks. But I don't want to make unbecoming jokes about Big Jeff, who is right now accompanying me down this interstate of solitude, not leaving me behind or riding my bumper, just gliding beside me as if he needs someone too, as if he trusts me and said to himself in his blue lit interior, hey, I'm gonna hang on her wing. She seems to know how to get where we're going. She's probably a Hellcat. No balls hanging from his tow bar, just Big Jeff on his pearlescent Ford Super Duty, which has a row of 3 headlights on each side, in which I admit I was more than annoyed by when he came up behind me like an Astrodome on wheels. But Texas is home now, and this is the way of things. Big Jeff and NASA, tacos and trucks. The only state with more guns than Kentucky, the man at the range told me before I left. I am an expert at beginnings. A lone star once again, as I have been in every state I've lived. The bluegrass, the garden, the palmetto, the bay. Each time hoping I'm closer to the beautiful things. Thank you so much.
Oh my goodness, Joy. How wonderful was that? Again, with the rich language, amazing visuals in your poetry, your powerful voice. And I'll tell you what, woman, you pick us up and just set us right down in the middle of your poems. What a joy. Oh, sorry. What a pleasure to hear you read your poems. And I seem to have read Big Jeff somewhere, so I know you have that published somewhere. And just so enjoyed it, just reading it. And again, just having the opportunity to hear your voice and you shouting out that Big Jeff was just so fun. And yeah, Joy is saying it was in poets.org. And what a very special and wonderful place for that to be. So I'm going to invite both Joy and Mary to turn on their cameras and their mics, and I'm going to ask them a question because I don't see any questions in the chat. So I'm going to use my questions tonight. Y'all had a chance. Now I'm going to do mine. And I love to do this one. And I'm going to ask you both the same question. And then I'm going to have Mary answer first and then Joy, if that's okay with everybody. And so the question is, tell me about your people.
My people. Interesting question, because my people are divided because I grew up in California and I lived there until I was 48. And much of that time, I was a single mother working very hard, and I went back to school and got my PhD. So my friends were my family. And I moved to West Virginia for a tenure track job at Marshall and got to teach Shakespeare. By the way, there is nothing like teaching Shakespeare in Appalachia. I don't know how these kids grew into Shakespeare, but they love it. They were wonderful. And I think it's the language, actually. So I immediately fell in with two other new hires, and they were my people. And they really helped me adjust to what was a totally new place for me. So I've only lived two places. Metaphorically, who are my people? Probably a bunch of trees, some birds, also some people. I have a wonderful daughter. She's certainly my people. And an obsessive mother and father relationship. They're ghosts, but they're my people. So ghosts, trees, birds, women friends, my husband, my daughters, those are my peeps.
Yeah, so I say like my dad's folks are my folks on my dad's side are, great migration refugees that landed in Cleveland to work in the steel mills coming from northern Alabama, Appalachian Alabama, actually, where they were sharecroppers out of slavery. And my mom's folks are, I don't know much about my mother's side, but my mom's folks were Kentucky farmers, Breckinridge County, Central Kentucky, by way long ago of what is now Germany, but I think what was Prague. I like to research all this stuff, so
Yeah.
I know I can answer that question pretty well. But yeah, all those things, just like constantly think about them as I'm writing, and like, so I'm like the soul Kentuckian on my dad's side, but now my dad has lived in Kentucky for how old am I? For 38 years, and he really he's a Kentucky colonel, so the horses are my people, the horses.
I have to throw something else in, if you don't mind. Ancestry research. I found out my maternal great-grandfather and grandmother lived in Boone County, Kentucky. And so there's a whole odd conjunction in my coming here, it seems to me. So I'm meant to be here.
I would say, and I love asking folks this question, because a lot of people do talk about their friends or nature, certain parts of nature or trees. They don't necessarily talk about their family, because their people oftentimes are those folks that they see every day, or have made lifelong relationships with. Not that we don't with our parents and our grandparents and whatnot, but it's a question that's very open-ended, and that's why I like it so much. I even had one person who spoke about her people being rowdy and like to roll on the floor and, spoke in loud voices and giggled incessantly. And of course, we came to find out that she was a special needs teacher, and those were her people. Those were the people that she loved the most, you know. And so it does give folks a really nice chance to just kind of expand on who they are and what they choose to write about. And I love that because, Mary, you do write a great deal about nature and so beautifully. And Joy, you write about your people, but you also write about a lot about, well, horsepower. You write about horses, and you write about nature, and you write a lot about your daddy, and you know, so all of that comes out in your work. And I thank you both for sharing newer work tonight from your new book, Mary, and your upcoming, obviously, new work, Joy, as you're working toward your new manuscript. Is there anything else either one of you wanted to share this evening that you didn't get a chance to do so?
No, I'm just glad to read here, to read for you, Carrie, and the Dairy Barn. And I love Joy's work. I love her energy and her voice, and I love how loud she gets. Love loud reading. Yay. So thank you very much for this venue. Thank all of you. And
love-
thank you for coming, people.
I loved your beautiful images, Mary. I don't have anything else to say other than I wish that we had more time. I think time is like a more important currency than money sometimes. But yeah, because this Shakespeare in Appalachia series just like grabbed my heart, and I'm like, that needs to be, somebody needs to do that. Let's call up Robert Geif and get some playwrights into. I live in Pittsburgh. Like, let's do it. Like, so
Yeah.
I just read Isabella Hamad's Interghost, her second novel, and she does like basically in the novel, like this Palestinian acting troupe does like Shakespeare, but adapts it for like the Palestinian story. So I'm like, let's do it. Like,
Yeah. These kids here totally got the post-colonial reading of The Tempest, where Caliban is viewed as the colonized.
that's my Mary, I wrote about that for my dissertation.
That's for well,
Hey, I'm gonna stop you two right here. Not that this isn't wonderful, but I do want to remind you that I have connected you two by email. So
Yes,
I'm
yes,
expecting to see this start happening because you two can work together on this. And I think you're right. I think Bob Geip would just love something like this, and many, many others as well. Now, do commence. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I just wanted to say, dang, I forgot actually. But I was going to say the Martinican poet. I studied Francophone Caribbean poetry, but the Francophone poet Aimé Césaire did an adaptation of the.
Yes, I've taught that.
Oh wow! Okay, we're besties now, Mary. Like we.
Oh, this is not the first time this has happened here. Diane Seuss fell in love with our wonderful, one of our wonderful Columbus poets, which was just so exciting to have happen. So I am so pleased to have had both of you here tonight. Thank you so much. You just bring such richness. And for many of us who don't get to hear a lot of other poets read, this is just so nice. And I want to thank the Dairy Barn, of course, for hosting us, the Ohio Arts Council for funding us so that we can bring in all of you special folks to spend the evening with us. I want to thank everyone who came out this evening and remind everyone this is recorded. So of course, everyone can have a chance to listen to it again. And for those who are here and for those who are listening, next month, I hope you'll join me to hear the extraordinary voices of Ellen Bass and Dustin Brookshire, which is gonna be something. There's gonna be a few fires set, I have a feeling. Thanks everybody so much. And until next month, I want to wish you wellness. Good night, friends.
Good night. Thank you.